My mother-in-law is trying to force my husband to divorce me because I can't have children. She even moved his ex into an apartment she bought for him. Let me start with some background about myself and how my husband Jack and I met. I, 27F, was diagnosed with pica and endometriosis when I was 18. The doctors told me that getting pregnant would be extremely difficult, if not impossible. It was hard to accept at first, but over time, I learned to live with it. I focused on my career and building my life, even though my parents constantly worried about who would marry me with this condition. Jack, 29M, and I met through mutual friends at a work conference 5 years ago. He was charming, intelligent, and most importantly, he made me laugh. We hit it off immediately and started dating soon after. On our third date, I decided to be upfront about my condition. I remember that night clearly. We were having dinner at a small Italian restaurant, and I was terribly nervous about telling him. But Jack surprised me with his reaction. He held my hand across the table and told me that having biological children wasn't a deal breaker for him. He said he was more interested in finding the right partner than in having biological children. We dated for 3 years before getting married. During our dating period, we discussed our future extensively. Jack suggested that we could always adopt or try other options if we wanted children later. His acceptance and understanding made me fall even more in love with him. We got engaged after 2 years of dating, and that's when I first met his family properly. His mother, Sandra, seemed nice at first, but there were small red flags that I ignored. She would make comments about how important family was and how she couldn't wait to have grandchildren. During our engagement, she constantly talked about how cute Jack was as a baby and how she hoped our children would look just like him. I should have addressed it then, but I was so focused on the wedding preparations that I let it slide. Our wedding was beautiful, though Sandra did try to take over the planning several times. She insisted on inviting distant relatives I had never met, saying they all needed to be there to welcome the future mother of her grandchildren. Again, I chose to ignore these comments for the sake of peace. The first year of our marriage was wonderful. We bought a small house, adopted 2 cats, and were just enjoying being together. Sandra would visit every few weeks, and each time, she'd make subtle comments about the empty bedrooms in our house and how they would make perfect nurseries. Things started getting really tense about 6 months ago when Sandra's best friend became a grandmother. Suddenly, the pressure on us intensified. She started sending us links to fertility clinics and articles about miracle pregnancies. Every time we met her, she had a new story about someone who overcame fertility issues. At first, we just deflected, saying we weren't ready for children yet, but things came to a head last month. Sandra invited us for a family dinner, something she does monthly. Everything was normal until after dinner when she cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping her with the dishes. She started asking very personal questions about why we weren't trying for children yet. She wanted to know if we were using protection, if we had gotten fertility tests done, and if I was taking any supplements. I tried to change the subject several times, but she wouldn't let it go. Finally, feeling cornered and uncomfortable, I told her about my condition. Her reaction was explosive. She dropped the plate she was holding, and it shattered on the floor. She started screaming about how I had deceived her son and ruined his life. She called me selfish and manipulative, saying I should have told him about my condition before the wedding. When Jack heard the commotion and came into the kitchen, Sandra turned on him. She was crying and telling him how I had trapped him, how I had stolen his chance to be a father. Jack tried to explain that he had known about my condition all along, but this just made her more furious. She accused me of brainwashing him and said he was too young to understand the importance of having children when he made that decision. Jack's father, Tom, who had always been quiet and pleasant, came in and tried to calm the situation, but when Sandra told him about my condition, his face changed too. He looked at me like I had committed some horrible crime. He started talking about how important it was to carry on the family name and how Jack was their only child. The situation got even worse when Sandra brought up Jack's cousin Mark, who had recently divorced his wife because she didn't want children. She said that at least Mark's ex-wife had been honest about not wanting children, while I had trapped Jack by hiding my infertility. Her exact words. Jack was furious at this point. He told his parents that they were being ridiculous and that he had made his choice with full knowledge of everything. He said he loved me and that having biological children was not more important than our relationship. Sandra then said something that really hurt. She said that Jack would grow to resent me, that one day he would wake up and realize I had robbed him of the chance to be a father, and by then, it would be too late. We left immediately after that, with Sandra crying dramatically and Tom standing there shaking his head disapprovingly. Since then, Sandra has been on a campaign to save her son from me. She's been calling our relatives, telling them her version of events where I'm the manipulated woman who trapped her son by hiding my infertility. She's even reached out to Jack's ex-girlfriend from college, Amy, telling her that Jack made a mistake in marrying me and that they should reconnect. Jack has been incredibly supportive through all of this, but I can see how much it's affecting him. He's becoming stressed and distant, especially when his phone rings multiple times a day with calls from his mother. He started letting most calls go to voicemail. Recently, things have escalated even further. Sandra has started sending us gifts in the form of baby items, diapers, baby clothes, and even a crib, all with notes saying how she hopes we will use them soon. Every time we receive one of these packages, it feels like a slap in the face. Jack has told her multiple times that we're not ready to have children, and he's already explained why. But she doesn't care. She is relentless. I also discovered that she bought an apartment for Jack, an apartment that she's calling a family investment. When I confronted Jack about it, he explained that Sandra wanted him to have a place for his future family and that she had been pressuring him to move in with her so they could start fresh. I was shocked. This felt like an ultimatum, as if she were trying to push me out of the picture altogether. The fact that she was trying to dictate his future like this made me furious. Jack assured me that he wasn't interested in the apartment and that he had no intention of living there, but the entire situation left me feeling incredibly uncomfortable. Jack and I had a long talk that night where I told him that I felt like I was being pushed out of his life. He promised me that he wouldn't let his mother control our relationship, but it still felt like there was a growing divide between us. His guilt over disappointing his parents is evident, and I can see that it's weighing heavily on him. I've never been one to make demands, but I told him that I needed him to stand up to his mother for the sake of our marriage. It wasn't easy, but Jack took a step towards setting boundaries with his mother. He told Sandra that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needed to respect our decisions as a couple. She was furious, of course, and threatened to cut him out of her life entirely. But Jack stood firm. He told her that he loved me and that he would not tolerate her trying to manipulate our lives. It was a difficult conversation, but I could see that it had taken a toll on him. After that, Sandra didn't speak to Jack for almost a week. I thought this might be a sign that she was backing off, but when she finally did call him, it was to tell him that she was cutting him off financially. She said that if he wouldn't follow her wishes and make things right, she would no longer support him in any way. This included withdrawing her help with the mortgage on our house and any future financial assistance. It felt like an ultimatum, and the pressure was intense. The situation has only become more difficult since then. Sandra has been spreading rumors about me, telling people that I am unfit to be a wife because I cannot provide Jack with children. She's been calling friends, relatives, and even neighbors, turning them against me. The pressure from her is unrelenting, and it's starting to strain my relationship with Jack. I can see that he's torn between me and his family, and I'm afraid that his loyalty to them may start to outweigh his loyalty to me. I'm trying to stay strong, but it's hard. I never imagined that a mother's love could be so consuming that it would drive someone to destroy their child's happiness. I've always thought of Jack as a kind, thoughtful person, but now I see how much control his mother has over him, and it breaks my heart. Jack and I have been talking about what to do next. We've considered moving away, starting fresh somewhere else, but I know it's not going to be easy. Sandra won't let go easily. She's already threatened to show up at our doorstep uninvited and cause a scene if she has to. It's terrifying to think that someone's mother could be so manipulative and vindictive. Jack has promised that we'll work through this together, and I'm trying to hold on to that. I've told him that I don't want him to lose his family over me, but at the same time, I can't stay in a marriage where I constantly feel like I'm being pushed aside. I need him to choose me, not just in words but in actions. If he can't do that, I'm not sure where our marriage will go from here. In the meantime, I've been focusing on myself. I've started taking yoga classes again, something I used to love, but gave up a few years ago due to stress. I've been meeting with a therapist to talk through my feelings, and it's been helpful to have someone to talk to who isn't involved in this mess. I'm trying to remind myself that I am worthy of love and respect, no matter what anyone else says. But it's hard when the people who are supposed to love you are the ones tearing you down. The latest blow came when Sandra showed up at our house unannounced last Saturday. She was holding a bag full of baby clothes and a few toys, all meant to soften the blow and remind us of the future we're missing out on. She had no regard for our privacy or boundaries, and she demanded to speak with Jack immediately. I wasn't home at the time, but I can only imagine the tension that must have filled the room. When I returned, Jack was visibly upset. He told me that Sandra had been relentless and that she'd basically thrown a tantrum, accusing me of everything from lying about my condition to ruining Jack's life. She had even said that she would never accept me as part of the family unless I had a child. This was the breaking point for Jack. He told me that he had finally told his mother that enough was enough. He said he would no longer tolerate her attempts to control his life, and he had told her to leave and never return unless she respected our decisions. I'm proud of him for standing up to her, but I'm also worried. What happens now? We can't go back to the way things were before. Sandra's influence has already done too much damage, and I don't know if we can repair the rift that has formed between Jack and his family. I love Jack with all my heart, but this situation has made me question everything. If his mother can cause so much havoc in our lives, what's next? What else is she willing to do to get her way? For now, Jack and I are taking things one day at a time. We're still a team, but I'm not sure where we go from here. There are days when I feel like the weight of it all might crush me, and other days when I feel hopeful that we can make it through this together. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm trying to stay strong for both of us. If we can make it through this, I know we can handle anything.